and they implemented, in my opinion, one of the coolest army thematic sub-rules of all time.
All right, welcome guys to episode 34 of the Old World Behemoths, our final Renegades episode, and probably A, the shortest, Chris, but B,
Guaranteed.
perhaps the most controversial of our takes.
I would agree on that. Some spicy takes.
Some spicy takes. Well, it's only the two of us tonight. Tom is out of action. He's about to finish his university course and start a new paralegal position. Congrats, Tom. Really making strides there. Alistair is as sick as a dog.
It's been sick
and
for weeks.
We couldn't cast Invocation of Nehek to raise him.
Good call out.
From that one. Yep. Like that one.
Yep.
Like that one. But we thought we'd press on because we're now recording on Thursday evening, Australian time. And as probably most Old World players know, within the next 48 hours, the big reveal show for GW is happening, which finally has some Old World content. So we wanted to make sure we did this before we got swept away by which undoubtedly will be a tidal wave of Old World content. Wouldn't you agree, Chris?
I do, and I would also like to point out that whenever we record one of these, Val is legally obliged to release the document within the shortest time frame possible following this episode.
Yes,
so
that is.
We're just trying to keep the momentum going here.
That's right. Okay, well, it's been a while, and so Chris, let's ask you tonight, what's going to make you a behemoth?
What would make me a behemoth is if we got Bloodlines back.
Ooh.
And that would, just absolutely blow my mind. Don't know if we'd get there. A few editions ago, we lost that.
We'd be there.
Yeah.
So you're future casting yourself as a behemoth.
As a behemoth vampire lord.
Yep.
On his dragon. Absolutely powered up to the nines.
Love it.
Probably losing every other game.
Love it.
To Cathay.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a behemoth because I have started printing all of the terrain for the behemoth doubles coming up. Thank you, Alistair. It'll take me about 3 months to get moving. Right, on to things. Episode overview. So, as you said, imminent. We need the massive foghorn alarm to say vampire count is coming. Val said, God, he hates it when we say this, by the way. He said it's coming next week, allegedly. And we're hoping to see the Renegade finale play out perhaps in a different way than all of the others have, which is everybody will now have a code, an army book, and can look back at the other releases and say, oh, you know what? They weren't so bad. They actually weren't so bad in the grand scheme of things. Most people have calmed down. Most people have had a few games, and they're going well.
Yeah.
And they're going well.
And I know like it's a bit of a joke, this whole, it's coming imminently and all this stuff. Like, shout out to Val. This is probably the hardest one to do because it's like walking into a minefield. There's a whole bunch of buffs that he probably needs to do alongside probably some nerfs, and it's not easy at all.
You can't nerf it. You can't buff it. Like, where are we going? We're going sideways the whole time, the crab shuffle. But, I agree. It's going to be a hard one. Probably why it's been saved to last. Perhaps leading into our vibes around the episode, which is more around a lore-based. I mean, they all have been lore-based, but more around fluffing it out at the edges rather than doing other things. As we've said, and to correctly and probably fairly call out, with something that happened with the elves and dark elves specifically, was that are there major changes going to happen to vampire counts? Probably not, because Val needs to stay within the guardrails of Tomb Kings.
Yes.
So unless GW changes Tomb Kings Arise, etc., probably not going to change. We'll go into it. Chris, we'll go into it.
It's a huge, it's a good shout out because it's a massive anchor, unfortunately, around his neck when it comes to this book. We saw that play out a little bit with Dark Elves.
Yep.
So we'll see how it plays out here.
Now, quick question. My first ever Warhammer army was vampire counts, and so they've had a special place in my heart.
Yep.
And in fact, I was going to play that. If you remember, Chris, all those years ago when the game got announced, I said I was going to play vampire counts as a callback to my first army, and I bailed when I found out that they weren't core, so I switched to Warriors of Chaos. And I've always thought about going back to it, but we can't really discount the fact that they've quite literally been a specter, pun intended, of the game, right?
Yeah.
Which is dominating events. Yes, we've seen nerfs here and there to different things. We'll talk about applied nerfs when we get to the appropriate slides, etc. But I certainly am looking forward to this because perhaps I can finally go back to play vampire counts without feeling dirty. So what have you played vampires at any stage?
So, fun story. When I was originally getting into Warhammer Fantasy, I want to say it was late 7th ed. I walked into my local GW. I browsed all of the armies on the shelf at the time, vibing with things, reading through things. I had already read a lot of the lore going into it. My dad had played Warhammer for a little bit when I was growing up, so I kind of was aware of the world. Played those awesome video games that I think you also played in like late 90s, early 2000s, like Dark Omen and stuff.
Dark Omen.
So good.
Incredible. Find it on GOG.
Yeah. So fully immersed in the world. Didn't really care too much what army I was going to play at the time because I didn't really know the rules. Walked in, stupidly asked the guy behind the counter, "Oh, can you help me pick an army?" Yeah, no worries. Classic GW move. Which models do you like the most? Like the look of the most? A fair question. And then I pointed out to him, to be perfectly honest, I like pretty much everything. Right? There's nothing that's really kind of tugging me one way or the other. And he goes, "Oh, okay, well, let's narrow it down a bit. Is there like a particular faction that you like the lore of?" And I said, all right, at the time, I was like, Tomb Kings and Vampire Counts. He goes, perfect, right? They're both undead factions. One's got the Egyptian theme, one's got the Gothic theme. It's like, which theme are you leaning more towards? And I went, to be honest, they're about equal for me. And they were at the time. Like, I definitely think the Tomb Kings have a really unique flavor to them that I quite like. But I also love that Gothic theme. And then I stupidly asked him, hey, which one is doing better in the game at the time? Like I didn't want to buy like a Gumby army. And I would like to remind the listeners, this is late 7th ed. Anyway, long story short, he's like, I'll go with the Tomb Kings. And so I walked out of there with the Tomb King army, assembled it, played maybe 20 games with it, got absolutely thrashed every
Destroyed.
game. Every game, including by my friend's Demon army, which was absolutely busted in 7th ed. Put them on the shelf and then never touched them again. I think back to that day, because at the time, vampire counts were doing really, really well.
Yep.
And I feel like if I had just made a different decision, a whole bunch of things would have played out differently. Anyway,
Definitely.
I craved that vampire counts style army. And when Age of Sigmar rolled around and basically killed the world, they carried on the vampire counts models, obviously, into a new faction. And when I went to collect that faction for AOS, I specifically went out of my way to collect like the old vampire counts models for it. I didn't want any of the new, the Nighthaunt guys, the ghost guys that they added. I was like, none of that. Give me the old Gothic vibe. So I had a fully painted AOS army for years based on that. And now I am printing. If you can just see that there, it's a little zombie.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Printing the Vampire Counts army that I kind of always wanted.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I sneakily have a few STLs on a Vampire Coast themed army, which would be an incredible one. But we'll use that as a great segue. By the way, awesome art.
All the vampire art is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll move on to the first slide, which is, okay, what do vampire counts do well? Now, we're going to try and not go too wide on this one or too deep, because a few people are scarred from playing them. But let's try and think as holistically as we can.
Yeah.
What is it in your head, Chris, that you think about vampires immediately when you see them across the table?
I guess the unending hordes of infantry. Mm-hmm. That's probably the big one. Magic. They are very magical. Typically have a lot of wizards floating around. They've got interesting spell laws in pretty much every edition.
They are quite literally a necromantic army.
Yeah. Now, for me personally, I love the vampire theme of these kind of elite heroes that are meant to do a lot of heavy lifting, surrounded by the masses of, let's be honest, fairly rubbish infantry that are meant to support them. So it's an interesting dynamic of like a horde army with a couple of really elite, powerful units that are meant to kind of win you the game, while those hordes kind of hold everything back and pin everything down.
Yep. Well, it's an interesting opening statement, because I would entirely agree. It's almost, we're probably on the slide before around like the theme of vampires here, which is, the vampire lord is a supernatural horror that haunts the night and is ultimately a killing machine that's been around for in some cases, many thousands of years, or I don't know how long they've been around in the vampire lore. We don't have Alistair tonight. He'll he'll know. But the point is there, and I agree with you, which is the vampire itself is meant to be the centerpiece of the army.
Yeah.
Very much like the Lord and the Dragon, etc. And I've always imagined vampires that even if they're on foot, they should be like killers, like really powerful characters.
I don't know what edition it was, but there was I want to say it was called the Blender Lord, the Vampire Lord, which was, there was a specific build that you put in, and he used to sit on foot in a infantry block.
Yeah.
And his whole job was to basically, he had a disgusting amount of attacks. He had a crazy magic weapon, and he would just shred entire units on his own. He'd literally be surrounded by zombies or skeletons, right? Absolute garbage. He alone would win you the combat.
Yeah. Well, to stay on the topic of this slide about what they do well currently in the game, they're most well known for the fact that, yes, they grind as a play style, and we put an arrow to resurrect, because the current situation with them is, unless your enemy kills your unit, or like literally to zero, most likely most of them are coming back.
Yeah.
Right. Screams are fantastic, and we should point out that screams have always been good. I mean, back in 8th, it was 2d6 plus 4 on the Deathly Shriek, which was better than what it is now. But I think, as you point out, there's a couple of different things that like changed between there and having to have line of sight, etc.
Yeah.
Yes, they're good at magic. That they have access to +1 to cast from the Mortis Engine. Generally speaking, they're not having to risk casting Invocation of Nehek. It's quite simply just a leadership check, which has been an ongoing debate in the Warhammer scene about whether that should be changed.
I can't remember if it was ever not a spell.
It was always a spell.
Yeah,
it was always a spell.
I'm a bit surprised that they made that change, and I'm even more surprised with the way that they've I don't want to say worded it, but like basically powered it up as well. Like it's kind of crazy how much you can resurrect.
Yeah, it's powered up. The BSB, we should point out, allows for leadership rerolls, and that's a specific vampire counts thing. Yep. And what that means is on a leadership 8 Necromancer, I think it's a 90% chance or so to go off.
Yeah.
And thus you have no way of mitigating it. So we have seen the introduction of a couple of things to try and pull that back. It's probably one of the actual most nerfed armies in the game right now when you go to a tournament. I mean, we locally have they specifically in Western Sydney Wargamers and around the world, but I dare say that perhaps Western Sydney has been playing it this way for almost 12 months now, where you don't get a leadership reroll on your leadership for Raising the Dead for any of the undead factions. Further, there's ethereal limitations being brought in, and I know it can be a difficult thing for the vampire players to come in and look and see that a lot of their army has been, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. But you've got to have some consideration for the guy across the table, which is you're playing like Warhammer Simulator, where you just march stuff up. And then we go, not saying they don't lose, of course they lose. Across the world, of course they lose. But in the tuned world, they're a very good faction.
No, 100% agree. I also think it's worth calling out that they do have quite a wide roster. They've always had a lot of units in their lists. Right now, we are seeing certain units kind of float to the top, and everyone basically running similar lists. But it's not a small book. There's a lot of units there that maybe if they get some buffs, you might see some other units see some play. And that allows you to build some very interesting and also very themed lists if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and probably the call out here is, I don't want to keep harping on this, but it's potentially a very uninteractive game. You push stuff forward, you resurrect it, and you push it forward again and resurrect it again. And we put their incredible core mostly because they just have zombies, cheap scoring.
Well, it's
can't go past their starting unit size. By the way, past their starting unit size has been around a long time.
Yeah,
right.
I think the core is more. So this is one of the few armies that you probably see core go beyond the normal minimum. Right, a lot of armies will go minimum core and then put everything else into special and rare and characters. It's probably one of the few armies where you'd see core go above the minimum, and that's because it's a combination of disgustingly cheap models alongside some very, very powerful synergistic rules, and those things combined into some just absolutely incredible options.
Exactly. Leading us on to what do they do poorly? And I've put there as the opening one, make you want to bring a vampire. We discussed this.
And almost no one does.
Some people do, right? And there are ways to do it. But we've got an example list on the next page. But the ability to have necromancers with resurrect, and vampires can have resurrect as well, of course, but
just not as good.
In principle, it's okay, but yes, you want the actual wizard levels. But I suppose it's more about efficiency, right? Because a necromancer is in many ways cheaper. You get access to high levels of magic, buffs. The Crown of Commandment I'm pretty sure is a Necromancer or White King item only. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but that's the one that gives plus D3 to weapon skill. So everything is off of leadership, which can be rerolled.
Yep.
It can be thought of perhaps as the vampire is not the mainstay of the army because it's the necromancers that are your most efficient choice of character that can be mounted on Mortis Engines, which are basically unkillable most of the time. Give +1 to cast, give +1 movement bubbles, etc. And you end up with these lists where you'll see Necromancers, Cairnwraiths, etc. And then occasionally some madman will bring a vampire.
Yeah. I guess to kind of touch on the last point on this slide around that. Sorry, there's cat hair in the air.
Yeah, we should say for the audio listeners, we've put make you want to bring a vampire, list diversity, which we'll go into.
Yeah.
Can lack some damage dealing options and mobility issues, and I put in brackets, thankfully.
Yeah, so I think to tie in with the first point of makes you want to bring a vampire lord, but maybe you don't, is that mobility issue. A lot of that is solved by is it what's the spell called? Quickly looking it up. Is it Hellish Vigor? Yes. So because undead, a lot of the undead models can't march. That's been a rule that they've had for a long, long time. That inherently means that you're quite slow. You're giving up control of the battlefield, which can be very dangerous depending on your opponent. Hellish Vigor basically helps you solve that because it gives you an extra move with the unit that you cast on. So suddenly your Necromancer, who's resurrecting better than your vampire, is also helping to buff your movement because they're going to cast that spell.
They get reserve
and they're
move.
probably going to, and they're going, and they're going to do Raise Dead. There's just so many layers of buffs that a Necromancer gives you that what ends up happening when you're building these lists is you go, okay, I need to take a pretty turbo Necromancer to buff everything, probably on the Mortis engine. Oh, that's like almost 500 points right there. My remaining points was second Necromancer because I want another version of Hellish Vigor going off on another unit, right? Cool. Now I've got 2 Necromancers. Oh, I've only got a couple of 100 points left for my Vampire Lord. He doesn't really fit. I can't really tool him up enough to make it worthwhile. So that's why you're not seeing a lot of vampires. But as you pointed out, it can work, and you can absolutely build a pretty killy Vampire Lord. They probably don't quite match the dragon monsters that are flying around at the moment.
I think it's just why do that when you can bring stuff that means your army just never dies?
Yep.
Right. And I think we have seen some vampire builds. I don't think I've ever seen a successful vampire build at the Western Sydney War Games events. Very famously, Alex Brown from the 2 Plus podcast.
That was a funny event.
I think he made some stupid statement where he said, I've never played vampires at an event before. I've had a couple of test games. I'm just going to bring them to Oldhammer. And he went 3-0. He said it was the most unenjoyable games of Warhammer he's played. His opponents had no chance, and he left with I think it was second or third place.
Yeah.
And so it's such an interesting one because I'm really trying to toe the line of not discounting that there are skillful players playing the game, right?
Yeah.
It's just hard not to look at some of these lists and go, oh my gosh, you're playing a different type of Warhammer. But I don't. I even though I've just said that, I don't want to stick on this point too long.
Well, that's good because that's basically the next slide.
That is the next slide.
Do you
correct?
want to?
Yes.
Do you want to touch on list diversity and the damage options?
Yeah, there was one thing we didn't speak about quickly against on the previous slide. Just I'm not going to click back, but the vampire magic. So I spoke about things like the Helm of Command giving plus D3 weapon skill.
Yeah,
but you also have things. Access to like Van Hels's Dance Macabre, which means that you can, if you wanted to, take one wizard with Hellish Vigor to give reserve move, and another one to give out movement, weapon skill, and initiative, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's the Van Hels's Dance Macabre is the inverse in many ways of gift and mutation from demons, because on a larger casting value it buffs 2 initiatives, but you end up with this insane thing where you can have +3 to weapon skill Graveguard, +3 movement to them as well, +3 initiative, and you end up with
a reserve move,
plus reserve, like all these things, I
think they're drilled as well, aren't they?
Oh yeah, don't get that. I think if you watched Dr. Blackstill's latest video on Masters, you'll see Charlie
30
from
Graveguard or something.
Yeah, Charlie from Team England, who probably, I don't know if this is true, but probably is the number 1 ranked undead player in the world. I mean, if not in singles, certainly once you add in things like doubles, I'm sure he's up there. Sorry, doubles. My gosh, teams.
Yeah.
Probably has a higher grasp than anybody, I think. And Blacksteel was saying that he was using drilled and reserve move to like double drilled and end up in these insane places.
Yeah.
Which is a testament to his ability to run the game. But yes, the downsides are probably very few, right? Like when we talk about the buffs, about what they do well, it was their ability in the game. When we're talking about what they do poorly, they're largely thematic things, right?
Well, I would argue that they gave them potentially too many powerful options to overcome some of these issues. Like I don't remember in the previous editions them having so many buffs that could stack onto one unit to turn it into this kind of like beast.
Yeah, I mean,
they definitely had some buffs.
Undead should always be the faction in my mind that if you buff, like they get their buffs from the magical casters and magical effects, of course, because the more powerful the Necromancer is, or the more powerful the vampire is with their minions, the more effects that they should have around them. But it just feels like in the old days, it was like kill the general and the army dies.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas now it's like, try and kill my general. He's probably never going to die because he's mounted on a Mortis engine with 8 wounds, I think it is, which is constantly regenerating.
It's ethereal as well, isn't it?
I don't think it's ethereal. I mean, the last time I played vampires, I was shooting at it with a magical cannon. So
didn't matter
even if it is, the point being is that I think that's what's kind of missing, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, let's move on to. We've literally just covered it. Sorry, apologies. Just talking about it. The balance issues, which were the core army rules are insane. Invocation of Nehek being a leadership check. Do you know what? Like everything is most of the same as you said, but just in the context of the old world, it's a very difficult thing to overcome when you can't kill the general. You can't do enough damage to not kill them.
Yeah.
And sorry to keep talking about Black Seal, but he made a great statement the other day where he said, I didn't even bother shooting my like 15 bows at the unit of Graveguard because I would have done 2 wounds and they just would have been resurrected.
Stand back up.
Like and that feels wrong.
Yeah. So I'll get up on my soapbox for a second and particularly nail the top point on this slide, which is core army rule essentially breaks the game. Now, I already said this early on in Old World when I looked at the Tomb King rules. When and I guess to caveat this has gotten better with the advent of the match play guide and the fact that we've moved a little bit more towards objective play. However, when you play a game where a large amount of your points are based around killing models, and one army in the game, as in the actual game that you're playing, one army is slowly chipping away, which is the undead faction against, let's say, yourself, right? Your Bretonnians or whatever. Every model that they kill, more or less, is giving them points, versus the poor person killing the vampires counts army is almost never scoring points because almost every model that they kill is immediately standing back up again. And that just doesn't really work when you base a lot of your scoring around that system. As you pointed out, Blacksoul, in one of his games, I think he basically ignored almost the entire army and he was just focusing on, I think, one or two kind of key units. And it was more just to push them back off of, I think, objectives in the end.
Yeah, there was no point in engaging.
Yeah.
Was effectively what he was saying.
And that's a massive, in my opinion, a pretty negative experience for the other army because it's frustrating when you're like, oh, cool, there was a combat, we both swung at each other, we both killed models, and then the very next turn, the entire undead unit is fully healed, and your poor unit is still, slowly being chipped away, and it just feels like you can't do anything against that. So if I was GW, I would re-look at how they do resurrecting
in Tomb Kings.
But across the board, right?
No, I know, but remember, Chris, they don't exist.
Vampires don't exist. But in Age of Sigmar, they kind of fix this issue. So in Sigmar, the way that the resurrecting normally works is the entire unit has to die. To die. Then you can bring back half the unit using various other rules, right?
Yeah.
That, and you can do it once per unit, right? That kind of plays out okay because it's like, yes, my undead legions are endless in inverted quotations, right? They are endless, not really, but it feels thematic that you're still bringing stuff back, but you're not breaking the game by going, I've got this literally unkillable blob in the middle here that you don't even interact with it.
Yeah, and you've put here. I mean, community. I'm going to skip a few, but community nerfs for BSBs and other aspects. They are the number one nerf faction, I believe.
Maybe Cathay now.
Is that maybe? I mean, maybe Cathay. And you said something interesting, and I am going to steal it. But full credit to your thinking on this, which was the whole hype around vampires kind of died down when Cathay took that spot as their number one most broken thing. But Cathay then got nerfed by GW, you should call out, and the community. And now they're back. But it's interesting. We've said here, screams are crazy.
I think the scream issue is there's not a lot of restrictions on the scream, which is a bit silly. And the stacking debuffs to leadership, because the damage of the scream is based off the leadership test. So for anyone who doesn't play vampires, the scream is a leadership test against a unit. They have to, if they fail it, whatever the gap of the fail is, that's how many wounds they take. Doesn't sound too bad until you realize that at base the scream is at -2 leadership, and then on top of that they can stack, I think it's potentially up to -5 on the leadership test. It's crazy. Now you point that at a lowly hero, a poor goblin hero, right?
Oh, dead.
Almost immediately one shot, right? And that, without any interaction, right, is not great. Really isn't great.
Yeah, it's a really hard one because
it's always been like this though, which is kind of interesting.
It's always been like this. I think where I would probably like to see it is if we're going to have all of these negative leadership modifier effects, is it too obscene to basically move it from 2d6 with a -2 modifier to even just no
3d6
modifier?
or
Well, you
3d6
probably
drop
want
the
some.
lowest, something like that. I don't know.
I don't know, something like it's hard because you want to be able to use Banshees to kill some big things.
Yeah.
Right. That's the whole thing, is screen them to death, right? But when you, as you say, when you're applying a -2 plus a couple of extra like minuses off other effects, let's say you're at -3 even, and your average general and your average leadership of an ogre is now what, 5 or
With
9,
debuffs, yeah.
or what's the tyrant, 9 goes
Yeah, I
down.
think, yeah.
Yeah. On average, you're taking 2 to 3 wounds pretty much with no armor or regen saves. On a bad roll, because you're rolling with multiple screens, you can one-shot pretty much any big thing in the game. And it's the same thing as like the Vile Tide issue, where you end up with this, oh, I'm just going to roll my dice, and you're going to remove your model from the game.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out that they have so many screams because for some reason they gave them, I want to say it's an 80 or a 90 point hero, right? The Banshee.
Yeah,
that
the
can scream.
Banshee. Yeah, the Banshee's always had it. Yeah.
And I'm not saying they shouldn't have it, but when you can take, I think we saw some lists, right, tonight that were like 5, 6 screams.
Yeah.
Right? Like odds
back a bit.
Are you're absolutely wiping, a unit a turn with that pretty comfortably.
Well, they did. I know. I talk about like nerfs around and to the army. The fact that the playstyle was put your march your army up.
Yep.
In the current edition of rules, you can target enemy units in combat. So you have an unbreakable block that can then scream units behind it. The Mortis Engine has scream. The Banshees have screams. So you're talking about at least 3 screams within your HQ slot. Terrorgeist has another one. But I think generally, you're looking at the Mortis Engine plus 2 Banshees at a minimum. That's 3 screams per turn into combat.
Yeah.
Which means that if you charge the Graveguard, you're locked in combat. If you don't lose the combat, you get screamed to death, etc. So then the vampires can just sit there scoring, etc., etc., etc. So perhaps, in fact, Chris, let's hold before I go on my soapbox about what's happened. Tell me about ethereal.
So I've never liked the ethereal rule, the way that it's done in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll touch on how it's done in AOS, which I think is far superior, the ruling. So ethereal in this edition is if you are hit with a non-magical attack, it cannot hurt you at all. Mm-hmm. So the real bad old days of vampire counts, where you could go crazy with characters in the front rank, they would literally fill the front rank with only ethereal characters, backed up by a horde of skeletons, zombies, whatever, for rank bonuses, smash into you, and almost nothing in the game other than a hero had a magic item. So almost nothing could deal with that. And they would just sit there, combat resolving until you broke and fled. That's effectively similar to what they're doing now. They've restricted some of the ethereal shenanigans with like characters in the front rank a little bit, which is good. But there are still entire units that are ethereal. And I mean, I've spoken to some vampire counts players a few times, and I think the 2+ boys mentioned this, where for some vampire players, they can look across at their opponent's list early on in a game, basically count, how many wizards they have, how many magic items, magic weapons they have, and basically go, oh, you don't have the tools to deal with this portion of my list. I know how this entire game is effectively going to play out. That, for me, makes it a very bad rule. Unfortunately, this is a faction where it's sprinkled around quite a bit, and it probably needs looking at. And so just to touch on how AOS fixed this issue, AOS, which has a lot of AP, is kind of everywhere in AOS. Most units would have at least AP1, so you're modifying saves. Ethereal just said your save cannot be improved or downgraded. So if I have an ethereal unit,
it was like awards. Yeah, it's like gave you a ward save.
If I have a 4-up ethereal unit, I know no matter what, I'm rolling a 4-up armor save, right? I don't know if you could implement a similar rule in AOS. If you did, Old World.
In Old World.
If you did, you'd have to give a lot of these ethereal units armor saves because a bunch of them don't actually have anything. But I would think that that's a bit better than just going, you cannot hurt this model at all unless you have magic.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because the ethereal itself, I don't have an issue with, but in an army, again, which is unkillable, it's like, so I can't kill that unit. No, it gets resurrected immediately. Like, even if you do like 15 wounds, it still comes back. Oh, okay. Can I kill that one? No, because you can't wound it. So I'm going, oh, so what do? The caveat being, though, Chris, as a Demons player, I pray for the day that I come up against an ethereal spam list with my entire army doing magical attacks. So I think Alistair also, when he took his Nuln list to Old Hammer, brought it thinking that he would play some of the vampire players and go, I will obliterate your unit. Did he play a single one of them?
No.
No, he did not.
I would also point out that, like, from the vampire side of things, it's it kind of sucks when your opponent, let's say they spam magic missiles, which some lists, do, right? And you have a whole bunch of ethereal units, because they don't really have like armor saves, as I mentioned, that like they've really toned down the defense of them because they're ethereal. Well, guess what? Pretty much one magic missile is just going to absolutely shred that unit because, you just got nothing to answer for it.
You got nothing.
So when you have the tools to deal with the ethereal, it kind of flips over to the poor vampire player's side where they go, wow, this is going to be a horrible game because I have to essentially hide all of my ethereal stuff out of line of sight, out the back of the board, because 2 wizards on, flying horses or whatever are just going to absolutely zap them off the table, and I'm just going to lose those points immediately. So for me, it's this really bad rule where it's
really bad pendulum swing.
It's extreme one way or the other, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. Well, let's have a look at that in action, which is probably a fairly typical list for the vampires. If you want to go online to Old World Rankings and click through the list, you can see it. But we'll run through it quickly. This one specifically has a Cairnwraith in it. The concept of a Cairnwraith, I love. In fact, one of my favorite models from 6th edition was the robed Cairnwraith at the front with the giant side, walking around. I'm going, him just like axing people is awesome. But here we go. Master Necromancer on Mortis Engine. Spell familiar, Scepter of Denoir, that allows for a second Invocation of Nehek, Talisman of Protection. So he's got 8 wounds.
He's level 4.
He's level 4 with Spell familiar, so 5 spells. Scepter gives him that ability to do 2 resurrects a turn. As I've said that twice in a row. And the will save. So he's hard to shift. But effectively, what we're saying there about the second one is, let's say you push through 4 wounds by some miracle. He's got 2 resurrects. So therefore, if he's within range of the BSB, this is if you're not playing in a nerfed environment, you get to resurrect both. One you use to heal yourself, and the second one you use to heal a unit nearby, right? In an absolute dire circumstance, use both to heal yourself.
And the healing is your wizard level plus D3.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Correct. Well, so I mean, it changes depending on your.
Yeah, sorry. It depends on the unit type that you're resurrecting. But if we're assuming it's infantry, which is most of what you're going to take, on average, he's doing 6 models back each resurrect.
Yeah, so 12.
Yeah,
on average, right? And then if he's healing himself, it's only 1 wound per turn. But that's effectively 2 guaranteed wounds back per turn. Then another Master Necromancer, this time on foot, level 3, extra spell, Skull Staff. Yeah. Coming back to it, the ability to have 3 resurrects that have no downside to being cast is where the heart of this army is. Now, the Skull Staff is effectively a +1 to your Dispel. Now, what this means is in this list, you have your Master Necromancer on the Mortis Engine handing out +1 to cast, and then a Master Necromancer with +1 to Dispel. So the Wizards are casting at +3, and one of the Necromancers is dispelling at +3. There is no downside to that. As you said, the magic is very strong. 2 Tomb Banshees, and the White Lord handing out the BSB. In this case, the Mortis Engines Tapestry to it for anti-storms. The Helm of Commandment is the +D3 to weapon skill. 30 Graveguard. No points for guessing where the White Lord and Master Necromancer are.
Yeah.
I mean, interesting that there's also a case to say the Master Necromancer can sometimes just run alongside the unit, as in the guy on foot. He doesn't have to be in it.
No.
2 units to 20 zombies, insane, because they just die. You don't care. They're just there for scoring purposes.
So you also, sorry, before you go on to the zombies, the Drakenhof banner, that's the regen one, isn't it?
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a with great weapon, Graveguard with great weapons is relatively punchy, and you're buffing them up with a pretty defensive banner. It's a scary unit. And to call out with the zombies, pretty much everyone does this. You start at 20 zombies because the zombies have a specific rule and extra abilities around it, which say that they can go above their starting wounds. So you start at 20 zombies. First turn, you're immediately summoning more zombies on. By the time they reach combat, they could be 30, maybe even 40 strong.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think you just triggered something in me too, Chris. I don't think I've ever seen anybody cast the spell Raise Dead. And yes, it is a signature spell, so you'd be giving up Van Helsden's Macabre and Hellish Vigor.
Yeah.
They're too good. I almost feel like Scepter of de Noiro or whoever, again, Alistair would kill me on my pronunciation. Could probably just be that. Could be like here's a bound spell for Raise Dead rather than a second invocation. You are right. Yeah, the 30 Graveguard. Drilled is interesting. I mean, Drilled Undead kills me a little bit inside.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but we'll let that one go. And then 6 times 2 Hexwraiths. And, we see people play around with 1 unit of Hexwraiths, few units of Hexwraiths. Now, the key thing about Hexwraiths is I think they're probably potentially one of the greatest glass cannon units in the game.
Yeah.
Because as we've said, and I'll start with the downsides, anything magical touches them, they're dead.
Yes.
They're dead, right? However, they do fly. They can get buffs to their movement. But the key thing with them, for the players that haven't played Vampire Counts, is when a Hexwraith passes over you, you take a number of hits
Strength
as they
4.
fly over.
Yeah.
Strength 4, AP 2 from memory.
No armor save.
Oh, no armor saves. Yeah, we're supposed to say. Yeah, no armor saves.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen this interpreted many different ways, right? Like I've seen it online played as one model passes over and it triggers take all of them when, it says the model passes over. I've seen funky things like they fly in marching column like 30 inches and then quick turn to like do this big tail swipe to get you. And, I've had to kind of stand around going, guys, you don't have quick turn. You're not a fast cavalry unit, right? I actually think it's one of the most misplayed units in the game. It's rules wise, because of the fact there are these things. I mean, at one point, we've even had interpretations seen about ethereal being interpreted as you can land within a unit and bounce out of it, like complete insanity levels of stuff.
I just think that they are an incredible unit. They are fast, like the fly thing. So even if you don't do the ethereal stuff, and even if you don't do I think it's Spectral Reapers is the thing where they move over and do damage.
Yeah.
Having that unit be able to basically block out charges, be right up in the face of the enemy. Like it's very hard in this game to deal with a unit that quick.
Yeah. Well, the one I'm just checking something. Yeah. There's still a Swift Stride terror causing unit.
Yeah.
Which I love Hexwraiths. I love them as a vibe. I think I have a very particular color theme in mind if I were to do them. And you know me, Chris.
It's garish. The word is garish.
I only use a little bit of OSL. Just
how much pink is going
just
on?
Just a little bit of OSL in those things. Well, somehow I would find a way to put this orange floor on them.
Yeah.
But I think coming back to it to really ground it, when you're looking at this list, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ethereal units. You've got
3
unkillable
screams.
blocks, 3 screams, 3 resurrects, and you have all the answers. To me, this is something that if you're playing as a master necromancer list, you should have access to a lot of skeletons and zombies, etc. But you shouldn't have access to all this like to the ability to like one-shot dragons and units.
Yeah,
that's just my vibe anyway.
It's kind of crazy to me that Graveguard are core. So in this list, as you can clearly see, the Graveguard unit is 502 points. So if they just decided to, that's their core in one unit.
Yep.
And it's an amazing unit.
Yeah, but, I mean they are great. To me, gosh, this is going to be controversial, Chris.
I'm here for
it. Should vampire counts have 1+ skeletons requirements?
So
after Renegades is known for removing those limitations.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the way that I would go. I do think though that like, and this list is a terrible example because it has a White Lord, but I would probably say if you take a White Lord, you can unlock a unit of Graveguard in core.
Yeah, well, that is how they do it. That is how they do it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's no, again, the two. Did you know, Chris? Chris, hold yourself ready.
Oh, so it's Graveguard or Black Knights in core.
Yeah, Black Knights. Did you know that a vampire thrall can be a BSB?
Yes.
Shock horror. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. Imagine. Do you know what would be interesting actually? Gosh, okay, I can't hold this one back. Is where it says vampire, the BSB goes to the Count's banner, right? Imagine where it becomes a leadership reroll. Imagine if that was only on a vampire thrall's BSB option, right? So if you took a white king BSB, you get the BSB and the access to the banner, but your benefit is getting the core choice. Val, implement that immediately. Because really, that could be it. Because the younger vampire is coming in to take on the BSB from the camp, rather than just some old guy, some white raising out of the grave. Anyway, that's a typical list that's been haunting, quite literally, the local scenes. Call out to some of the other players as well. We do see vampire lists where people are vibing around Australia with terrorgeists and other things.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you just don't see it. You just don't see it. No. Okay. So let's move on to. Okay, we have to admit, Chris, we've probably done 30 minutes of lambasting on the vampire counts things. Maybe I'm the geniuses of all geniuses that have just solved vampires by saying move the counts banner to vampire thralls only. I don't know.
I don't think that's enough, but yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. There could be an easy change.
Yes.
Okay, what would we like to see? So, Chris, take us away.
I want to see vampires leading the army, and I want to see vampires. I hate to say it, but I'd love to see vampires get buffed so that you do. Like, they need to be buffed because the Necromancer just does so much that there has to be a good enough trade-off when you take a vampire lord. Right now, I would say that in most cases the trade-off isn't worth it. So therefore, I would like to, and lore-wise, they should be some of the scariest characters in the game. These are the guys that take on Chaos Lords in combat, right? And probably win, at least half those matchups.
Well, or have done, right? Like I'm sure in the lore, you will find many an invasion into the vampires' lands, being pushed back by pure numbers and a vampire walking up and just destroying the enemy character. I think you're right, because it's quite literally as vampire counts.
And the vampire should be the best thing in the army. Full stop.
It's an interesting one to toe the line on, because the concept of the vampire lord versus the vampire count versus the vampire thrall has kind of been bouncing around the different editions. And a vampire count, well, just like a vampire in general, perhaps suffered from just the general templated approach that we have in Old World now, where it's like, okay, so if you're a lord character that's meant to be fighty, your weapon skill 7. Now, right? And if you're a Chaos Lord, you have the ability to get buffs via rolling on the table of the gods, etc. And in some cases, I just feel like they've taken the generic stat line, applied it. Yes, strength 5, toughness 5 was what they had in previous editions, etc. But as we know, with strength losing its a armor modifiers, etc. Yes, it happens around the country. Around the country, my gosh, Chris, tonight's a good one. Around the game, yes, all that's happening, but again, a martial character, a vampire, is just a bit wet in combat. And so what I would like to see from a vampire perspective, and we'll talk about the potential lines that can be added to this, is actually probably a buff to their weapon skill, to weapon skill 8. If that's the only thing, they go to weapon skill 8. All that means is the vampire becomes your jeweler of enemy characters. So can go into most things and hit them on 3s, right? And I caveat that with a point about saying we don't want vampires to become unkillable busted things.
Yeah.
Right? Shouldn't be too bad, but I want there to be some risk reward. I want them to go on a Terrorgeist or a dragon and fly at me and think, you know what? I'm gonna go and hunt down Alice's Black Dragon and duel them. I probably have slightly the upper hand, but if I lose big because my army general dies
and they crumble. Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. And yeah, just from like, I think we'll caveat this slide by saying Val has a disgustingly difficult job ahead of him. We don't have great ideas generally, but some of these points on this slide, we don't have any answers to at all because it's so many different ways you can go down it.
Yeah.
But I think the big one is, I want to see a vampire in effectively every list.
Yeah, and we should call it. We didn't call this out though, Chris, at the start. We are every one of these reviews. We've come at it from the angle of we're not the expert. Oh, sorry, apologies. We do have some expertise because either we play the faction or we brought an expert on to talk about them. Tonight it's just you and me, so we are speaking at it from the what we're playing against rather than what we would play with perspective. So yes, it's a hard change. Resurrection fixes terribly difficult.
I guess one thing we totally forgot to kind of caveat with this episode was we didn't really explain the crumble rule to explain why resurrection is also so good. Do you want to, as a demons player, would you like to explain how that works?
Yeah, well, so for the uninitiated, crumble is quite literally whatever amount you lose combat resolution by, you take that many wounds.
Yeah.
So can be horrifically bad, but when you consider that you're in a unit of 25 Graveguard with heavy armor and 5 up regen, or if you want to go even more juicy, hand weapon shields, etc. with that in combat, you're never taking wounds. Everyone's got combat resolution bonuses, outnumbers, etc.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're not doing that. Vampires have the same rule called Indomitable. In demons, it's not called that, but in demons, it's called demonic favors. But demonic favors, infernal favor, which basically negates 2 of those wounds.
Yeah,
right. So coming back to your point about resurrection, just whatever, just okay. I lost by 4. I lose 4 models. I automatically get them back. Well,
as a demons player, how do you feel about how easy they're able to resurrect?
Oh, Chris, this is an interesting topic, right? Because as a demons player, there's been some, I don't want to call it discussion, but I've seen some comments around about demonic instability being broken because we should just automatically pop.
Yeah.
Right. I couldn't disagree more with that because the average demon is 12, 13 points versus a 5-point skeleton or 3-point zombie and can't come back. So demonic instability is slightly different to unstable because you can just sometimes just pass, right? Like it's that, it can actually be, it's worse in many ways because if I lose by, 5 to 8 in demons, I can lose, and I, roll 10 or 11 on my roll, I can end up losing most of my unit and never getting them back. So the resurrection fixes, we haven't even put it on here. I have no issue with unstable.
Yeah.
It's, as you say, it's the resurrection, which is,
we could go for another hour on that, Chris.
It shouldn't, on average, it shouldn't be that I kill, 5 skeletons, another 5 crumble, and then easily the undead player completely heals out the next turn. Like, that just shouldn't happen. It should be like, all right, I lose 5, another 5 crumble, and then they resurrect like 6 or 7. So, okay, I've chipped away a couple, right? That's kind of how the vibe should be. It shouldn't be this crazy swing. As we said, there should be interaction with the resurrection, right? It shouldn't really be a leadership test. Should really go back to magic, but then that might open a whole bunch of can of worms for the vampires. And just the last point on resurrecting for me, you couldn't do it because it's way too much bookkeeping, but I would like to see something where you're still rewarded for killing those skeletons points-wise.
Too hard.
It's too hard, but that's
too hard. Yeah,
it shouldn't,
I get it.
It shouldn't be healing is this double buff where I'm removing points that you've scored and I'm bringing models back. It shouldn't really be that way.
I've just literally just done the maths then. It's with the reroll, it's a 92% chance to pass. Without it, it's a 72% chance.
Yeah.
Now, I would be okay if they said it's a 72% chance and you don't get a reroll, as they've done in many of the nerfs around the place, right? Because then it quite literally is 1 out of 4 casts don't happen.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's something kind of nice in that when you go, so if you want a more reliable cast, you have to bring a vampire. Because the vampire's leadership 9. So therefore, now it's an 85% on the vampire. There's something cool about that.
Yeah. I think the vampire's leadership 8, though.
In Renegades, they're 9.
No, nice.
Yeah, Val did change that.
That's good.
But what that means is that they then must be your general.
Yeah.
Because of
Which
leadership 9.
Makes sense.
So the resurrection fixture is a very loaded one.
Yeah. Do you want to touch on ethereal changes?
Well, we did.
Yeah.
We did.
Again, I truly don't know how you fix it unless you give the ethereal units armor saves again and then do something you can't modify the save. I don't know.
I suspect, and I don't want to say that I'm always right, Chris.
Yeah.
You know me, I always say that I'm wrong about things. But I suspect if the resurrection was nerfed, and it wasn't as reliable, and the army did start to actually die/crumble, then ethereal would be okay, because then it's like, hey, this is my unit that you can't touch.
Yeah.
That is integrating, but if you do touch it with a magic missile, it dies.
Yeah, I mean, I just, for me personally, I want to see it taken back from the extremes. I don't want it to be this, you either cannot kill this unit at all, otherwise, or it dies to a stiff magical breeze. I don't want that. I want something in the middle. I do not know what that is in the
I mean, these are
old world rules.
That's an old world core rules change.
100%.
Who knows, Chris? Everything's pointing towards a new 1.5-esque edition, relaunch, massive change coming with the wins. We could be here next week going, man, that video was so wrong because the game changed.
Let's skip Bloodlines because it's on the next slide.
Buffs for bats.
Buffs for bats. So I'm going to lump. Let me go back to the top of the page so I can read the units. So when I say bats, I'm talking fell bats.
Yep.
Crypt horrors, sort of.
Okay.
Vargas. Vargas, because Crypt horrors and Vargas are kind of a similar unit. But yeah, Vargas.
A monstrous infantry analog. Yeah.
The Vargulf.
Yeah.
And then I would also argue for the Strigoi Ghoul King, because he's often riding the Terrorgeist, right? Now, the Terrorgeist is great. Strigoi Ghoul King, not so good, but...
We didn't even touch the Strigoi Ghoul King. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next session on Bloodlines, but...
so for me, the bat side of vampires is quite lacking at the moment. I'm just going to quickly scan their rules. I think there's something where they struggle with resurrecting a little bit. We checked, and a lot of them don't even have armor, which is kind of crazy. What did I say to you the other day? It was like Vargas is 61 points and have no armor save.
Yeah. They're just vampiric, massive vampiric monsters. I think Charlie was playing with our guys at Masters potentially too, in some freakish way, I'm sure. But coming back to bats, fell bats aren't terrible, right? Like
they are cheap.
Let me finish my statement. In the sliding scale of things, there's still a skirmish flying unit with 2 wounds, right?
Yeah.
But they're in special, right? And that kills me, because to me, fellbats should be able to be taken in core in a vampire counts army. Maybe not
with restrictions.
Endlessly. Maybe, but remember how, like, in Chaos Dwarves, they gave one. They brought Hobgoblin Wolf Riders 0 to 1 could be taken in core.
Yeah.
To me,
yeah, I wouldn't hate that.
And this is harking right back to my original metal, fellback models like that.
That cost more in dollars than they did in points.
They did, yeah. Like 0 to 1 in core, right, would be an awesome way, and just anything to encourage not taking just blocks of Graveguard.
Yeah.
By the way, bat swarms in core are a massive trap because they're trash.
Yeah.
They take heaps of wounds when you hit them, and then they take double the wounds, as in so if you lose 7 wounds on the charge because they've got no save at all. Sorry, they have a 6+ regen, Chris, which then adds more pips of combat resolution. Then they crumble, right?
Yeah.
So worse than demons,
Yeah.
right? At least like Nurglings and things they get demonic ward save and things. Or if you're a non-swarm, you're generally unbreakable. So they're a massive trap.
Yeah, I just want to see the bats back on the table. So there's we'll get into this a little bit with the Bloodlines, but there are different kind of sub themes within the army, and like the bats and the more, call it like warm-blooded undead, right? The things that are a little bit more alive than others. That's where the bats kind of fit in. And in the past, you could run very thematic lists around that. I would say right now, because of the state of those units versus the options that are taken like all over the place right now, you're just never seeing them on the table.
So there is actually a rule. There's a vampiric power called Lord of the Night, and what it is in Old World.
Manfred's? That was like a Manfred thing.
Well,
right?
no, it's one that's been around a long time. Again, but we won't let them in on the secret, Chris. But it's the von Carstein thing. The Lord of the Night basically is like, do a leadership check, and you resurrect wounds from fellbats, bat swarms, and dire wolves. D6 wounds, right? And it's not Invocation of Nehek, so it's something extra, right? So I just think this is really, as you say, this undertone of, if you brought fellbats, Lord of the Night is a 15-point upgrade for your vampire, right? So yes, there's like other things and other vampire powers and such, but even like a vampire thrall, like let's say your BSB is just rolling around as a vampire thrall with Lord of the Night, and he's just buffing your core fellbats that are flying around. And and we'll talk about it. Perhaps now is a good thing to segue into the Bloodlines then, Chris, because even though you said buffs for bats, you're probably also leading onto things like the ghouls in the list. That's another iconic unit, never to be seen, etc. Aligned to the Strigoi vampires. Quickly. Well, before we get to the Bloodlines, because we did rearrange this quickly, because we're probably going to spend some time on Bloodlines. Chris, to me, I made this list, but I think we both agree on it. This, to me, is what I think about as the quintessential lore appropriate vampire list. So I'm sitting there going, okay, my vampire back from 6th edition, not to blow too much on Bloodlines, were blood dragons.
Yeah.
Right. And to think about the history of it, all of the vampires come from a specific tree. They're called Bloodlines, family tree. And there's the von Carsteins, there's blood dragons, there's Lahmians, Strigoi vampires, and Necrarch vampires, right? And they have different things in lore, and we'll go into it on the next page. But in 6th edition, they had this fantastic, like they did back then in most things, abilities to theme your army depending on where it is. And on the right-hand side, I put it there. If you played Blood Dragons, it was almost like you had a Bretonnian duke who had turned into a vampire from Mausoleum and was bringing back his knights.
Yeah.
So when I'm thinking about it, I'm going, okay, I want to collect vampire counts again. And I want to bring a vampire count on a horse leading some black knights, blood knights, etc. As I've put here, I put the vampire thrall as the BSP rather than a white king. And I have, I've had to, before people shout at me, I've gone out of the realms of the 6th edition thing. I've tried to take the inspiration of the Blood Dragons list and apply it to the modern old world theme. So, to me, this is the vampire count riding out with his army of knights and foot knights that have been resurrected from the dead. He's got a vampire thrall. He's resurrected one of his long lost, generals to be his white king, etc. He's accompanied by blood knights and his personal black coaches rolling around. No screams, no ethereal outside of sometimes a black coach becoming ethereal when it needs to be.
Not much resurrection.
Yeah, not much resurrection. Like some resurrection because it's about going in, the vampires hitting hard, and away they go. Yes, would it get absolutely destroyed if I bought this today?
Probably.
Yes, it would. Could you change it to have a different, more levels of resurrects, etc.? Yes, of course. But I personally just wanted to throw out a Blood Dragon inspired list, which had no Necromancers.
Yeah, no, I love it. Blood Knights are my favorite unit in vampire counts of all time. Always love their models. Always wanted to own the old metal ones back in the day. I love seeing actual vampire characters that you've tooled up in here. And for me, seeing a block of Graveguard with skeletons and Black Knights as well, that is the core that I like to see of a vampire counts list.
Within vampire counts.
Yeah, like the giant Death Star of Graveguard that we saw earlier, tooled to the 9s. Is that better? Yes. Is that less interesting? Yes, 100% less interesting. We should see skeletons in a vampire counts army. I love it.
Yeah, I do. Maybe this is controversial, Chris. I have always, wondered because to me, Blood Knights are kind of on the same tier as Grail Knights. And we don't need to start another 2 hours on your escapades with Grail Knights, but I feel like Blood Knights should be weapon skill 6. Just controversial opinion. Similar to, I think the Vampire Count should be weapon skill 8. I mean, I think the Blood Knight should be weapon skill 6. My
issue with them has always been, and this is for Grail Knights too, one wound just is disgusting on a night wall. Like,
look, there's so many things that we could go into on that, but I think there's different ways to do this. If you want to build like a Strigoi list, you should be able to go ghouls and feel like you've got that. The vampire powers at the moment feel a little watered down, similar to I would say the Chaos Demonic Gifts until Val had a bit of a run at them. Probably the best comparison of the Chaos Gifts whereby, you're able to unlock all of these new things with chaos now. But to me, a vampiric power should be, if I choose that vampiric power, it is giving me a defining buff on the table.
100%.
Now, we're going to lead into it. The Holy Grail.
6th edition.
Or the unholy grail of 6th edition.
Yeah.
But manifested in the other editions.
Yes.
Talk to us about Bloodlines, Chris.
So, doing a deep dive of the old Undead books, starting with like 4th edition, Bloodlines kicked off in 5th. So, the old 4th edition book mentioned the different families, but it hadn't implemented any rules around them. 5th edition added Bloodlines, but in a much more limited way. 6th edition, they went crazy. And they implemented, in my opinion, one of the coolest army thematic sub rules of all time. And for me, that's the Bloodline. So on your screen here, and for the listeners at home, we will read some of these out. You had rules which applied to your vampires depending on the bloodline that you picked. All vampires in your list had to come from the same family, the same bloodline, so you couldn't mix and match. But as you can see on the screen, there were some pretty awesome buffs that came along with those. So you've got your Von Carsteins. They're just your default vampires. So all of the rules that exist on a regular vampire profile are effectively, they're themed for Von Carstein.
And by the way, you should point out, you just chose one.
Yes.
Right?
You didn't have to pay points for this. No.
Didn't have to pay points. Yeah. And that's why Von Carsteins had nothing, because it was like, if you don't want, as you'll see, there's an upside, often a downside as well. Keep going.
So Necrarch, which is the more casting ones,
magic,
like necromantic ones, +1 to the total rolled when trying to cast a spell. Thralls can get arcane items, so magic items. Cannot choose any mundane weapons or armor, so there's the downside. -2 to their weapon skill. So that's interesting, right? You get some buffs and you get some debuffs.
Yeah, and Necrarchs were always the, again, if we think about what made the vampire and the underlying theme, the Von Carsteins were the ones with the big castles.
Yeah.
And they're very much
flamboyant.
The very stereotypical vampire that holds court and balls and has many vampire wives from Van Helsing's stories, etc. And the Necrarchs were they studied the necromantic dark arts and didn't want to fight. They were huddled away in their castles, protected by.
They're in the background.
Scourgings.
They're doing schemes and they're trying to build their way up. We'll move on. We'll save the best till last. So we'll go Strigoi next. So these are the ghouls. These are the vampires that have given into that thirst for blood and have just become effectively animals. They've almost gone insane. So the rules that you get were lords and counts have +1 attack, are affected by hatred, and have a 5+ ward due to their great resilience. Thralls have +1 attack, are affected by hatred, and have a 6+ ward. Cannot choose any mundane weapons or armor, cannot use any magic item, always fight on foot, and Thralls cannot be given the battle standard. So again, you see a whole bunch of buffs with a bunch of debuffs. A really cool feral vampire kind of thing.
Now, we should point out, you can get the Strigoi vampire in the game as it is, right? Because he is a takeable choice. He does come with a couple of cool rules, like hatred all enemies, etc. But he, again, in the old world vibes, doesn't have that punch, right?
No.
Because a vampire count is weapon skill 7, right? A Strigoi Ghoul King in the game is weapon skill 6. He gets an extra attack, but he doesn't get an extra wound, right? He does in 6th edition. He got a 5-up ward save. He doesn't get anything like that here.
Yeah.
So you have this kind of no reason why you should take him. He can get access to a Terrorgeist, yes, but there's just no, like, why would I take this guy? Right? Outside of wanting to mount something on a Terror, he is the only thing that can be mounted on a Terrorgeist, yes.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's why would I do that? Again, he's meant to be a vampire. Why does he have one less indomitable? Right?
Yeah, 100%.
It doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, so back then, it was very much a case of, like, he was the models were incredible for Strigoi. They were like these long-fingered monstrosities.
Nosferatu, that 1920s kind of
vampire. Like Nosferatu is interesting because he's like Necrarchs are like Nosferatu almost, but Strigoi and Nosferatu, but beefed.
Naked.
yeah, beefed.
Yeah.
Yes,
all
keep
right.
going.
Moving on. Lahmia. These are so in the lore, these actually live near the Tomb Kings. Neferato's kind of family. So these ones back then get +2 to their initiative, which is pretty big. All models in base contact with the Lahmia vampire suffer -1 to their leadership. Again, pretty good. Downside, cannot choose any mundane weapons or armor, -1 to their weapon skill. So they're not as pathetic in combat as the Necrarch, because they're going to be probably swinging first, but they're still not, that great in combat as the other ones.
Yeah, and the thing about them is Lahmians are critical vampires in the lore.
Yeah.
Right, because they were the original, effectively the very first vampires, which were in Nehekara, were from the city of Lahmia.
Yep.
So they are effectively like the Egyptian court that turned into, the Egyptian court, the Tomb Kings, court where they were living turned into that.
They also keep it all going after Nagash basically dies. So they're enormous in the world.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, like you can go deep on them, but they were very much similar to Slaanesh in that they were meant to be using these powers to, beguile and make the enemies fall in love with your beauty as a vampire and manipulate you into doing things. So therefore, they were fast, as I said there.
Yep.
You suffered -1 to your leadership, which would then trigger different effects, which would have flow-ons, because we'll talk about some of the, what happened to vampire powers, but Lahmians today don't really exist in Old World.
No.
Sorry, in the lore they exist, but the ability to take them doesn't really exist, which is a real shame.
All right. Best till last. Our favorite, Blood Dragons.
Oh, yeah, baby.
+2 to their weapon skill. Lords and counts automatically wear full plate armor and can cast spells while wearing armor. So, which is a very important rule back then. But generate 1 less power dice than their magic level. So that's effectively like they're a weaker wizard. Blood Dragon with the highest leadership in a unit must always issue challenges and must always accept enemy challenges as possible. So basically, like they want to prove themselves in combat, which is why they have +2 weapon skill, which is crazy. Lore-wise, I think most of them are based around the Red Keep, right, which is near Bretonnia, up in the mountains. And there's a few vampire characters based around the Blood Knights. They're my favorite. They are like literally undead Bretonian, elite knights. Is such a cool theme. And they lean into the vampire archetype that I like most, which is that killy, I'm going to get in your face, I'm a 900-year-old warrior, right? That's you and me one-on-one right now, see who's best.
To see what's going on. I mean, there's a fantastic story in the 6th edition book that has always stuck with me, which is a Bretonnian knight is roaming the countryside, and he effectively comes across another knight, mounted on the horse, etc., with the draconic emblems, and he fights the knight without realizing that it's a blood dragon. But he fights well enough that the blood dragon vampire effectively says, I'm not going to kill you because your martial skill has good enough that I respect you as an opponent, and just disappears. Right. And it's always stuck with me because that's how I see the different like vampires, right? The von Carsteins are sitting in their towers in their castles holding court. The Necrarchs are studying. The Lahmians are off, doing different things. The Strigoi are hiding in sewers and caves and different things. But the blood dragons are roaming the countryside. I mean, in a way, the blood knights really are the blood dragon vampires of today.
Yes.
Right. But the fact that quite literally the old law was the vampires had to go and drink the blood of the dragons was part of the history that, so just go and read the 6th edition book,
it's
guys.
Such a good book.
Go and read it. I mean, it can be overlaid with so many different things, but yes, the blood keep is an important part of the law. And it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, don't go near, I think the story goes that the Empire had to lay siege to the Blood Knight. The Blood Keep was such a large army that it took many years of fighting, and the Empire lost like an immense amount of troops. All the champions were killed. All of the greatest champions were killed to kill like one blood dragon at a time.
Yeah.
Right. So it was just this thing where all the blood dragons got killed in the Blood Keep, and now they're scattered out in the wild. Like they've lost their home.
Yeah, and just touching on blood dragons, because they've actually recently gotten new sculpts from Age of Sigmar. So this theme, this blood dragon / blood keep theme, has carried over into Age of Sigmar because that's how strong, like a cool piece of lore
the vibe
it
is.
You could run an entire army where a vampire is sitting on a zombie dragon. Most of your army is blood knights, like mounted blood knights, and you can have like a little character on a horse, and it's a decent army in AOS. That's how cool this theme is. Bring it back into Old World. It has to come back into Old World.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably touch on it, and we didn't want to go too many slides on this. We've only got 20 minutes, but this was fundamentally the basis for vampiric powers.
Yes.
So before 7th edition, guys, in 6th ed, the von Carsteins would have a set of powers, the blood dragons would have a set of powers, the Lahmians would have a set of powers, etc.
Yes.
And then they generalized them into
7th and 8th,
into a shit. And now, you kind of have a list now.
Well,
whereby
so to touch on that, because I've got the 6th edition book open right now.
Love it.
Family had 6 vampire powers that were unique to that family.
Yeah.
Then in the 7th and 8th ed books, there was like 2 pages of vampire powers. Old World, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 in total. 7.
That travesty.
That is embarrassing. And it just does not do justice to those old lists at all.
Yeah, I understand that it's a renegade list. Oh, sorry, a legacy list.
And
so
they
were
absolutely half-assed it. Yeah.
They half-assed it. And, they've got a few around here. Okay, Beguile, that's a callback to the Lahmian one. Supernatural horror. Lord of the Nights, more like the von Carsteins ones.
Yeah.
Most people have probably switched off by now, Chris, because they're sick of our ramblings on we're not playing 6th edition, etc. But to me, that is what is at the heart of the vampire counts.
Customizing your vampire
is I want to the troops are so generic, the skeleton is so generic. I want to customize my vampire to be whatever it is. If I want as you say, the Nosferatu vampire, I want to build him. If I want the blood dragon, I want to build it. If I want the Lahmian who's going around seducing all the empire generals and playing, politics at court, etc., I want to be able to do that.
Yeah. Now, for me, the dream, absolute dream.
Tell me your dream. Give me your dream, Chris. I want to hear it.
Is you bring back Bloodlines along with vampire powers that are tied to Bloodlines, along with list restrictions based on the bloodline. Absolute peak, right? Peak. It's never going to happen, guys. It is way too much effort. But for me, that would be peak. You give me a Strigoi vampire count that I can tool up, so he's this absolute blender lord in combat, but he's got he's frenzy, right? So he can't. Once he's in combat, he can't control himself, right? And then suddenly I can maybe buff my ghouls up, or I can take Vargeist or something. I can take Cryptoros, in core or something, right? I can have these interesting lists themed around specific vampires. That would be, for me,
sick.
So sick. And I would do it, and I would swap my army around. But yeah, never going to happen.
So 8th edition, right?
Bit weak.
Looking at the powers, this is not a massive stretch, right?
No.
Dread Knight ability, 10 points. The vampire has +2 weapon skill and must declare
challenges.
The highest one with leadership must issue a challenge. That is the Blood Dragon one
from
right
6th
there.
ed.
From 6th ed. And that's an 8th ed, right?
Yeah.
So boom. There you go, Val. Add that in. Probably make it 20 points. They've got, back then, Beguile was at the beginning of the close combat phase, yada, yada, yada. The monster take a leadership at a -3 modifier. If the test is failed, they must reroll hits, etc. It's an interesting one about, just to touch on this, about testing leadership checks to get defensive abilities such as this, because Slaanesh have a very similar one, right? Where you have to take a leadership test. If you fail, you can only hit on 6s. You're paying points, potentially 20, 30 points, 40 points, for something that will benefit you 20% of the time in combat. And it's never worth it. So I lobbied, I'm still lobbying Val. I think that if you take something like Beguile in the vein of the Lahmian school of thought, that it should be at -1. Similar to, I think, the Slaanesh one should be -1. At least, just at least -1. You're paying 40 points for Beguile.
Yeah. Well, for me, the reason why I was a little bit let down by the 7th and 8th ed books when it came to the vampire things was they effectively removed the Bloodlines system that they built so well in 6th ed. I would like to point out that, because I've just counted, in the 8th ed book, there are 14 vampire powers. So literally double what we have in Old World.
Yep.
If they brought it...
And by the way, many of them do call back. I mean,
they
Red
do.
Fury's in there from 8th ed, which is the same as 6th ed.
If we went back... So if we just added a whole bunch of vampire powers from the past, that would obviously be a good thing, right? Tool up your vampire. I get a little bit frustrated lore-wise because there isn't really anything in the 8th ed vampire power system which goes, this power is meant to go with this power because it's from this bloodline. You can basically mix and match anything you really want, points, restrictions, of course, but it's not very thematic for me. So I don't know how you could not maybe go all the way down the bloodline system and bring some of that back in with the vampire powers. Maybe you have like some sort of system of grouping them and saying you can maybe pick from this pool over here. Maybe one power from this pool and one power from this pool. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We'll see. We'll see. Let's call it. Yeah. Let's call it there before we go for another hour. But my personal summary of this for the Bloodlines as a final note, I'll pass to you to comment as well, is it's a area to explore that I think is a nice middle ground between we're gonna change a couple of things here and there. Again, such as the banner of the Count being only for Vampire Thralls Val. But allows for additional flavor.
Yeah.
And thus we are able to explore vampires in a way which won't upset too many people. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean,
final thoughts.
Yeah, so I don't know how you're going to do it. I just want to see more of that old fluff, that old theme, that old style come back into the list. Again, I truly do not know how you do it in an elegant way with the rules that we currently have, but that's the direction that I really want this army to go in.
Imagine if GW released vampires and then we had an arcane journal for every bloodline, Chris.
That's peak. That's peak. Well, to send us off, we did want to thank our Patreons. Always, I'm so happy to see this many people supporting the channel and the fact that they still want us to do this every week, Chris.
It's amazing.
Listen to me go on about demons for 3 hours. But continued thanks to Death1942, Ghost, Pandem Wargaming, Josh, Sick, Silver Dave, Gomo, Bonehead, Earl of Kent, Ulazed, the Western Sydney Wargamer Boys, the Orange Juicer, Big Daddy H, Torytown 69, Prophet of Sotek, thank you, Pete. And again, congrats on your new spawning. James Alexander, Twin Cursed, Tajay Orson, Behemoth Brig, Wolf Cry Minis, thanks, Ruby, Snorting Milo, Val Heffelfinger himself, good to see you back from your holiday, Val. Tom, this should be a War Master podcast, who I'm sure probably is wanting us to change his name, but now
he's
refusing to. Yes, and continued thanks to Flemdog, who helps us with the sounds. New sounds are coming, Chris.
Great music.
New sounds are crizzing. Yep. And graphic support by 25 Creative, who do custom work. Yep. So anyone looking for custom designs, reach out to the links below in the channel. Otherwise, you can contact us at our email. We're happy to connect you on all things graphic design. So, Chris, that's it, mate. You know, what started out as a probably a complaint fest about vampires and where they're going to go, I think ended on probably one of my more favorite topics, which was touching on the nostalgia of what I had when I first entered into Warhammer Fantasy all those years ago, many years ago. Probably 26 years ago now, Chris. That's a scary thought.
That's what gets the clicks, the nostalgia bait.
That's right. And bring it back.
100%. Can't wait to see both of our Vampire Counts armies on the table.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely coming. And I'm really excited to see Vampire Counts kind of the end of this phase of the square-based Renegades project, and really keen to see what happens in the next 6 months for Old World as a whole.
Love it, Chris. You're waking up at 4 a.m. for the reveal, of course, on Saturday morning. We'll look forward to your update, buddy, because I will not be awake. All right, guys, have a good night. Take care.
Thank you.